All right, the last part of the lesson, we are going to talk about solving absolute value inequalities. Now, you don't need to memorize this, but it is helpful to know. Anytime we are dealing with a greater than symbol, it's going to be an or statement. The less than symbol will be an and statement. But again, we don't need to memorize that as long as we know how to interpret our final answer. Now remember, when we are solving absolute values, we always have two things that we need to solve because absolute value is talking about a distance from 0 on a number line, so there's always two of the same distance. So the first one, and this should really say inequality, the first inequality, we just remove the absolute value symbols and solve as is. For our second inequality, we're going to remove our absolute value symbols, we're going to reverse the inequality symbol, and multiply the right side by a -1, and then we solve. So let's try our first example. So it says solve and graph each inequality, write answer in interval notation. So on this one, so we're going to leave it as is. So 3x plus 6 greater than or equal to 12. And then for the second piece that we're going to solve, 3x plus 6, we flip the inequality symbol to point this way. And we're going to change this to be its opposite sign. So this will be a -12. Okay. And then just like before, we're going to solve each piece. Okay, so from this one, we're going to subtract 6. So 3x greater than or equal to 6, divide by 3. X greater than or equal to 2. That's our first part. Then we do the same thing, so now we're going to solve. So again, subtracting 6. 3x less than or equal to -18, divide by 3. So x is less than or equal to -6. Okay, so here we're going to be to the right of 2, because it's greater than. So I'm going to just start graphing this, and that'll help us figure out if it's going to be an and or an or statement. So here's my number line. So 2 is going to be on this side. Here's my -6. There's lines underneath them, so that means that we are going to have closed circles on both of these, so closed circles. So we shade to the right of 2, so that's this way, and then to the left of -6. So our shaded parts are going away from each other, so that's going to make this an or statement. So when we do interval notation, that means that we're going to need two pieces. So again, on this side, our smallest number is going to be -infinity. So parenthesis, -infinity. Largest number is going to be -6. And since that is included, this is going to be a bracket. And then we have our or statement. Okay, on this piece, so this is going from 2 up to positive infinity. So 2 is the smallest, infinity is the largest. 2 is included, so it's going to be a bracket and then a parenthesis. All right, next one, number 11. So same directions. So again, before we start into our two pieces, we have to follow our same rules for absolute values. So we need to get the absolute value by itself and then create our two equations. So that means that we need to start by subtracting 4 to both sides. So we'll have the absolute value of 2x minus 3 greater than 7. And then from here, we're going to create our two equations. So first one, we just drop the absolute value. So 2x minus 3 greater than 7. The second one, we again drop the absolute value, 2x minus 3. We're going to flip the inequality, so it becomes less than. And then we're going to change this to be its opposite sign, so -7. And now we're just solving each piece. So first, we're going to add the 3. So 2x greater than 10. Divide by 2, so x is greater than 5. And then we're going to do the same thing to the next one. So again, adding 3 to start with. So 2x less than -4, divide by 2. So x is less than -2. So again, before we decide if it's an and or an or, let's create our number line here. So we're going to have -2 and 5. So this time they're both going to be open circles. All right, here this is telling me to go to the left of -2, so that's this way. And then to the right of 5, so that's this way. So again, we have 2 pieces. So that means for interval notation, we're also going to have 2 pieces. So on this side, the smallest is going to be -infinity. So parenthesis, -infinity. The largest number is -2, but we don't include that as part of our answer. So parenthesis, or symbol. And then smallest this time is 5, all the way up to +infinity. So 5, +infinity. And then 5 is not included, so that's going to be a parenthesis. So that would be our final answer in interval notation. So this is an or statement here. All right, next problem. So again, our first step is to always isolate the absolute value. So for this one, we're going to start by adding 9. So 3, absolute value 2x plus 6, less than, and then 15 plus 9 is going to be 24. Now remember, we never distribute into an absolute value, okay? So now we have to divide both sides by 3. So that cancels. So we have the absolute value of 2x plus 6 less than 8. So now we can create our 2 separate equations. So 2x plus 6 less than 8, and then 2x plus 6. So again, we flip our inequality so it becomes greater than, and then we're going to change that to be the opposite sign. And now we're just solving each piece. So subtracting 6, so 2x less than 2, divide by 2, so x is less than 1. Here we're going to subtract 6, 2x greater than -14, divide by 2, x is greater than -7. So again, before deciding what if it's an and or an or statement, let's just make our number line so it's easier to tell. So we'll have -7 on this side, 1 on this side. So it looks like we're going to have 2 open circles. So according to this, we need to shade to the right of -7 and then to the left of 1. So that's going to be in between here. So that means that we're dealing with an and statement. So since we have an and statement, that means that we only need 1 piece for our interval notation. And we can see that too because we only have 1 piece for our graph. So the smallest number is -7. The largest number is 1. Both of them are not included, so these have to be in parentheses. Okay, so that would be our interval notation for that. All right, last problem. So again, starting by isolating our absolute value. So we're adding 7 to both sides. So absolute value of 5z plus 3 less than 38. Now we can write our 2 equations. So 5z plus 3 less than 38. And then we're going to have 5z plus 3. Flip our inequality symbol, so greater than. And then we're going to change that to be the opposite sign, so -38. And now we are just solving each piece. So the first step we would do is take 38 minus 3. So 5z is going to be less than 35. So divide by 5. So z is going to be less than 7. And then we solve our next one. So again, we're going to start by subtracting 3 to each side. So 5z greater than negative, let's see here, 41. Divide by 5. Now that's not going to divide nicely. So we want to leave it as a fraction because it's also a simplified fraction, but sometimes getting the decimal helps us get a little bit better of a number sense. So if I'm thinking about this, 5 would divide into 41 8 times. So this is going to be 8 point something. And then, so about 8.2. So I'm just going to kind of write that off to the side here. So I know it's going to be -8 since that's negative, and then 0.2. But we're going to leave this as a fraction, Okay, so this is really just to give us an idea of where we should put this on a number line. Okay, so really our final part for this is going to be z greater than negative 41 over 5. In our heads, we know that it's negative 8.2. So again, that's just to give us an idea of where to put it on the number line. All right, so let's make our number line. So since this is negative, it's going to go on this side. So negative 41/5. 7 goes here. We're going to have open circles. Okay, and if I'm looking, so we are shading to the right of our negative number, to the left of our positive number. So again, it's going to be in between here. So that means that this is an AND statement. So for our interval notation, we're just going to have one piece to it. The smallest number will be negative 41/5. Largest is 7. Again, where they're not included, so these are both going to have parentheses around it. So that's going to conclude section 6 lesson for chapter 1.